Welcome to the No Filter, No Apologies podcast with Rebecca Sachs and Katie Shapiro.
Welcome back to another episode of No Filter, No Apologies podcast. And in honor of Take Your Kid to Work Day, which is actually this Thursday, April 23rd, we're going to talk about Take Your Kid to Work Day and where it came from. It was started in 1993 when I was a teenager, and Katie was too. um, and it actually was started for Take Your Daughter to Work Day so that young women could get exposure to different career opportunities than your typical norms, as I do air quotes, because most women were going into teaching, nursing, being secretaries or receptionists. And this was an opportunity to expose them to different fields and career opportunities. And I know I honored these days when I was a teenager and I was able to go with my dad one year we went on different sales trips and sales meetings. He sold manufacturing conveyor belting. And so that was kind of cool. We got to go to different manufacturing plants, and there was a lunch that we went out to. And looking back on it now, he was definitely schmoozing someone to try and sell to them. And then another year I went with my mother and was at school with her. So I got to see her teach. She did special education teaching, but also practice inclusion within special education. And so she was always operating within the classroom, partnering with the teacher that she had team teaching with. So I thought that was pretty cool. Did you ever take your daughter to work day?
I don't recall it. I also grew up in Philly and
Yep.
I didn't know it at the time. It's something I can appreciate now. There were so many schools that were specialized that
Yeah.
you had the opportunity to attend, and you went to look at these schools. Like, they had obviously the academic schools. There were two that were top in academia, but then you had schools that specialized in theater. It was called Kappa. And the arts. I shouldn't say just theater, but they
Yeah.
specialized in the arts. There were schools that specialized in STEM. There were schools that specialized in trade. And then I actually went to a high school that focused on agriculture, and it was part of your middle school experience to tour these schools, and you would see what else was possible beyond an academic perspective. And I
Right.
thought, it didn't occur to me until just now when you were talking about this. I'm like, I didn't have a structured take your child to work day or take your daughter to work day, but I do remember that as part of growing up, where you could see the possibilities of
Yeah.
what you could become outside of the academic world.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you had the vocational opportunities like at your disposal, which is nice because
Yeah.
most young women during in the 90s did not. Uh,
Yeah.
and growing up in the burbs right across the river from Philly, we always talked about what we wanted to do when we grew up, but never really how to get there or the exposure, right? And so I think the Take Your Daughter to Work Day was a pivotal thing for our generation, or at least for me it was, because then I remember as it progressed, 10 years later, it became Take Your Kid to Work Day. And I was bitter about it. I was very angry. I was like, boys should not be allowed because girls are the ones that need more exposure. Boys have all the opportunity. Girls don't have all the opportunity. I was very angry about it. But now that I look on it, I think it is a great opportunity to be able to share with your children what you do and for them to get that real time experience and exposure and see you in action, if you will. I've worked in organizations that have Take Your Kid to Work Day events, and they're very structured. A previous organization I was with, they would have children of the ages of 5 to 18 were able to come in, but they didn't really watch their parents work. It was more about occupying the children while the parents
Yes.
worked and defining what their parents did and making a game out of it or role play. They had different activities throughout the day up until noon, and then the kids got to go home with their parents at noon. So if you had kids, you got a half day.
That's actually cool. But I'm with you. I didn't participate in it as a kid, but working as an extension of human resources, I was often involved in the creation of the program for
Yeah.
Take Your Child to Work Day. And it's funny, you and I were talking about this in preparing for this episode, but the goal was more keep the kids entertained and make it fun. And yes, they get the name badge and they all of the exciting things. They get to do
Yeah,
the fun things associated with whatever company you were with. I've worked with a few, but they don't actually learn what it is to work and
right,
to see what a normal day is, because in a normal day, you don't walk in on a red carpet and get your picture taken and get in. So it's sort of, what's the word? Glamorizes, I guess, work
absolutely.
instead of really showing kids what are your parents doing every day. And I think that's a disservice to them for when they are preparing for work, and also to the parent, so that your kids can see what are you doing when you're away from me for so long, and how hard do you
Right,
work to provide for us. I
right.
think there's an opportunity there, missed opportunity, that a lot of companies have when creating this.
Yeah, I totally understand having a lot of children. So, say, for example, you're in a sales environment and you have an open concept, and so you have a sales floor with a bunch of people on the phone. I could see how having a bunch of children on the sales floor with their parents would be totally chaotic and distracting, right?
Yeah.
But if you give them 30 minutes of time to shadow or watch and see what they're actually doing, you're actually giving them that exposure. And there were some children who were more timid or shy that would prefer to sit with their parents, which they did, but they would be on their iPad. It's not like they were
Right.
really observing what was happening. And I think that's the whole point. And knowing your children notice how you are when you come home for the day, and so being able to understand why you're in a good mood or why you're in a bad mood, I think is critical too, because it gives them the opportunity to say like, do I want to deal with this as I get older? I just think that yes, they're doing a disservice to the whole purpose of take your kid to work day.
And how frustrating it is if you've worked a long day, especially when you work in a consumer facing position, any kind of service industry, or
Yeah,
like you and I have talent acquisition backgrounds where we're on the phone all day. It's much like
yeah,
sales too, where
yeah.
you're on the phone and you have to be on all the time. I would get home and I'd be like, I don't want to talk to anyone. I don't want to make a decision. I don't, I
that
just want to be quiet.
that
On it.
it's so funny you say that because even like my partner and I now, it's fine. Like at the end of the day, we don't have to talk to one another. We just watch TV. What are we gonna find? And then, okay, what do you want to eat? I don't know. Just tell me what you want to eat and I'll figure it out, whatever. But I don't want to make decisions. And I
And if
think,
I may, I
yeah,
don't mean to take you back, but you said something, and I think it was, we glazed over it a little bit, but it was
yeah,
something I didn't know. You said two things. You said that take your child to work day actually started as take your daughters to work day. And
correct.
then later you said you were super bitter when it changed to take your
Yeah,
children to work day.
yeah,
But I think I don't want to glaze over that, especially because our audience is about empowering women. And even I am ignorant to it. I never knew that, right? I think it changed to take your children to work day in 2003. You were sharing with
yeah,
me. I had my first child in 2004, and my first child happened to be a son.
yeah,
So, take your child to work day for me. It was great that I got to include him. I did not realize that was initially created to expose young girls and women to what was possible.
yeah,
And I think that is huge. And I don't know if you can tell our audience a little bit more about that, just why it was created for girls or who it was created
yeah,
by. Because I think understanding the root creation of something makes you value it more and makes you look at it differently. And I know
yeah,
we're talking about, hey, let's not just entertain the kids, let's actually show them what their parents are doing every day and why they're away from them for 40 hours a week. But I also don't want that part to get lost in the sauce of the
yeah.
importance for
Well,
girls and young women.
it was really to expose women and young girls to other possibilities outside of the gender norms, right? So you typically were seeing women going into teaching, nursing, being a secretary, and being able to take them to work with their dad or their mom, who may be in a leadership role, just gave them exposure to different opportunities than what those gender norms always were. Or I think I mentioned this on another episode, like my grandfather saying, oh, she's just going to get married, no big deal, right? And so you don't have to worry about what my future is because I'm just going to snatch me up a husband. Not the case.
Match me up a
And
husband.
so Yeah, I think that's really was a big basis behind it. And it was started by the Ms. Foundation. And when it was established, I remember my middle school putting posters everywhere every year about it. And it was a big topic of conversation because they were encouraging the girls in the school to go to work with their parents. And it didn't happen when I was in middle school, but I know as I got older, some of the requirements that if you were going to do take your daughter to work day, you would have to come back and write a paper or provide feedback to your class because you were missing a day of school. Like I said, I was in the early stages of it, so I didn't have those responsibilities, thank God. But
Also a learning opportunity to go
yes,
experience that and then have to
absolutely.
present and communicate it to your class at a young age or even up to high school is great. I also find it interesting that it only took 10 years because you said created in 1993 and then
Yeah,
2003 it was expanded to include all children. It only took 10 years of that. And I often find that I support inclusive practices 100%.
yeah.
And like I said, I'm a mom to a son and two daughters. So I see both sides of wanting to include, but then I also wonder when you open something up to everyone, do girls get left behind again? Does
That
it lose the meaning for girls?
Yeah, and that was I like I said, I was really bitter about it. And at that time I was just graduating college, so I wasn't in a space where I was going to work with anyone or I didn't have any children of my own to take to work with me. But I was bitter because the whole point was that we weren't given the same opportunities that boys or men have been provided in the past, and it was to be able to give us that exposure and put us at the forefront where men had always been or boys have always been. And for us to now it's all kids but I do also believe in inclusivity, and I think being able to have equal opportunities for both is great, but does it have the same meaning anymore? That's the other piece. And so yes, you can still take your kids to work, but as we were just saying, these organizations now create more of a fun day than actual exposure to work and what the work
Right.
environment is and what if you decide to go into this career, what the career will look like for you.
Yeah, and I also think it's important. So again, as a mother to a son and daughters, I have a responsibility to teach my son to see women as equals and also to use his privilege to advocate.
Yep.
And he's a little bit older now. And I've said to him, there are going to be times where you're sitting in a meeting and a female colleague of yours will start speaking and someone will interrupt, or she will start speaking and someone will take credit for her idea. And it's critical for you to recognize those moments and advocate, interrupt, or say, I'd love for Katie to finish her thought, or hey, that thought sounds exactly like what Katie just said. But for him, it's not his lived experience, so he might not
Right.
notice it
Right.
unless you create that exposure. And so when we talk about things like exposing kids to what does a meeting look like, and
Yeah.
are you including little girls in meetings where they can see women in powerful positions?
Yeah.
And if we're opening it up to both genders or more even non-binary, are you seeing people who look like you in leadership so you know what's possible? You can still
Right.
create that what's possible for them, and you create it in a better way where young men grow up going, "Oh yeah, I remember from Take Your Child to Work Day, there were a lot of women in these meetings and
Right.
in leadership positions." And it's normal to them, and there's no competition or a lot of the things that we see here. And then young girls see, no, when I went to Take Your Child to Work Day, there were a lot of women involved and there were men involved in the activities of the day, right? It wasn't just women
Yeah.
caretaking the children in this
Yeah.
activity. There's a lot of unspoken opportunities to create visibility and exposure for kids that isn't defined. You just witness
Right.
it and you experience it and it becomes the norm, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. No, and I agree with you. I think that's being able to see what actually happens throughout the day in a business is critical for take your kid to work day, but that's not necessarily what's happening. And I think
Yeah.
if you are going to facilitate a take your kid to work day at your organization and you have a lot of children that are going to be attending, yes, you can have fun activities, but you still need to give them the real time, real life scenario of what's going on in the organization so that they
Yes.
can see what's possible or what they
I
don't want to
think
deal
too,
with.
if you don't give them that exposure, it makes other things difficult for kids to understand. I can share a moment with you where
Yeah.
I have two actually with two of my children who have shared with me. My youngest, she's in high school now. When she was in elementary school, they had to go to aftercare because my husband and I were both working.
Yeah.
And I would get to them. My son would say I was always one of the last ones there. And it's because the distance from where I worked to where, I mean, I would roll in after care was done at 6 and it was 5:58 that I was picking him up or 6 o'clock on the dot. And then my daughter had said to me at one moment, just once, I wish you would pick me up and not be on your phone so I could tell you about my day right away. I cried so much that night. I felt awful. I actually left that job and I took a step back in my career on purpose
Yeah.
so that my kids wouldn't have that experience. I mean,
Yeah.
it was that upsetting to me, but I think working remotely and then being able to see how much I'm working and what I'm doing created a different exposure for them too. And
Yeah.
so I wonder how
Absolutely.
remote work has impacted what our kids see also and
Yeah.
going, oh, I have a different understanding of it. And I have a different understanding of what I want and what I don't want. I mean, my son's been very open with me about, no offense, mom, but I don't want to do what you were doing back then. I don't want to have
Right.
to take calls during dinner because I'm that high up in an organization that I can't sit and have dinner with my family. And I
Right.
was like, this is a lesson in boundaries
Yeah.
for my kids. And we talk about that a lot now and what's changed.
Yeah.
And for my daughter too, especially
Right.
seeing different things. But they've also seen that I can be available to them. So I think work from home creates a different kind of take your child to work day
It
experience
does.
that maybe we're not even
Absolutely.
considering.
Yeah. And I mean, if you think about in the last 6 years, because of the pandemic, the remote work was so prevalent, where remote work was definitely something that was normal in talent acquisition or recruiting and in our space. But when it expanded beyond just that and everybody was doing it, I wonder how the kids of today now look at what their parents do and how their parents operate, because everybody experiences it differently. You and I both know, working in a remote capacity, you start at 7 a.m., you don't finish till 10 p.m. And
Yes.
now we've changed our ways since then because the burnout is real, and the stress and the anxiety that comes along with that is just, it's unbearable and unmanageable, and nobody should be doing that. Now I may still work those hours, but my day's broken up differently.
Yes.
It's not where before I would sit down and work 15 hours in a row. Now it's more of a, I work a couple hours, take a little bit of a break, work a couple hours, take a little bit of a break. So I have more balance in my day, if you will.
Yeah.
I also can't look at my computers after like 8 o'clock because my eyes are crossed and it's too much.
I think it's cool though now. I mean, my kids are watching me go from corporate America to entrepreneurialism, and there's some
Yeah.
overlap in the
Yeah.
how many
Yeah.
hours you put in when you're running your own
Right.
business and the things that you do, but I think I'm much more present than I could be working for someone else. Even as an
Yeah.
entrepreneur, even working all the time, I'm able to be present when we are together or take a moment and say, like I will tell you, if my kids call me now, I pick up every single time. And that was a goal of
Right.
mine. It's one of the reasons I went into entrepreneurialism, wanted to create my own business, was because I would be texting them, is everything okay? And, you know, I'm in the middle of an important meeting. And now it's, this is my business. These are my kids and they come first. And not, I don't care if they're 21 or 12, I'm picking up the phone.
Right.
And that's something that you can do. And I think it's cool that they get to see that as well. They've seen both
Yeah.
experiences.
Yeah.
I think organizations have a great opportunity with Take Your Child to Work Day to
Yep.
create a real scenario and to look, they'll get a lens into the
Mm-hmm.
future workforce.
Yeah.
And I think for kids, having an honest experience there would give them the kind of exposure that allows them to say, well, what career am I going to pursue? Because I don't know about you. I was conditioned growing up. You go to high school, you go to college, you graduate, you get a job, you stay there for 40 years, and you're going to retire with the gold watch and the pension and the, everything.
Right.
And that's not true for, I'm an exennial. Is that what it is? We're in that like hybrid generation, but I'm in between Gen X and millennials. So I look at it and go, yeah, that's not my experience. And my kids are Gen Z. They definitely
Yeah.
see it as not their experience.
Right.
So now, if you can really expose kids to what's out there from a trades perspective, from a corporate perspective, from an entrepreneurial perspective, I think you'll have a much more educated workforce who
Absolutely.
is following the path where they belong rather than a path
Yep.
they've been conditioned to think that they should go into. I don't think that's great for the government because
No, no, but
less
I agree
people
with you.
fall in line.
And I know we talked about this before too, that there are a lot of kids these days that are creating their own businesses at such a young age and generating some sort of income or something. I know there's locally there, it's a young boy and his mom. They make cookies and they sell them and then give the money back to veterans in need. And it's such a cool thing. And he's made more money doing it than he ever thought.
Mhm.
There was another a young woman that I saw on the news, and she was making sweaters and raising money to put clothing on animals somewhere where
Aw.
they needed it. Like it was adorable. And there's a girl that I used to play kickball with, her daughter makes bracelets and sells them. I think she's like 12. There's so many different things that kids are doing these days to try and just be themselves and not even generate income, but it's mostly giving back to the community and doing something for somebody else. And I
Yes.
like, what a better way to have your children start working, right?
Yes.
Than thinking about other people and all these kids with these big hearts doing different things.
And even beyond actually doing things for other people, there's a level of transparency and authenticity that social media has brung. It comes with a lot of negative too, but
Yep.
I've seen a lot of people. There was a little girl I would follow. Her name was Zuza. She unfortunately passed away, but she was sharing her cancer journey as a young girl, as a
Yeah.
preteen. And she was showing her experience in hospitals and other kids who are going through this. And I think when you are a kid going through that, to see someone else going through it
Yeah.
too and talking about what you're experiencing is a way of giving back that maybe it wasn't through
Absolutely.
donations, but it was through
Yeah.
visibility and camaraderie. And I was trying to think there was someone else. Oh, you know, there's that show on TLC now, Balin Out Loud, which is
Yeah.
she's a young
I
adult
love
living
her.
with
Yep.
Tourette's and she creates visibility into Tourette's. Now, I happened to work with someone when I was at a very young age who also had Tourette's. He was a boss of mine. So I learned about it then and was aware.
Yeah.
But just to create this awareness and this acceptance, I think this new generation is so accepting.
Yeah.
And part of it is because how they were raised by Gen X and millennial parents. And the
Right.
other part is because of the exposure that they have to so
Yeah.
much variety of people.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important because these are the future leaders of our
Yeah.
country. And I think they're going to naturally be more inclusive because of the access and visibility that they have to the diversity that the world has to offer
Yeah.
in every way.
I think it's a double-edged sword though, not to be Debbie Downer or negative Nancy over here, but because they have so much exposure, they learn about so much that it also causes a lot of anxiety in their lives too.
Yes.
And the children of today have so much more anxiety than I don't like. Yeah, once I got into high school, I had kind of anxiety just thinking about what the future was going to be. But I know growing up, I always wanted to be an adult. And I tell my niece all the time, like, just enjoy being a kid because before you know it, you're going to have bills and things that you have to be responsible for. And responsibility sucks. Like, being an
Yeah.
adult is fun sometimes, but all the responsibility and adulting things that come along with it, they're not fun. Like having bills, not fun.
Yeah.
So enjoy the moment that you're in and being a child. And I also think that children of today have a harder time being children because they're exposed to so much and they have so much information. And where you talk about parents working multiple jobs, the children see that and I feel like they take on their anxiety too because they're exposed to it.
And I
Yeah.
feel like we've spent so many years, and I look at our generation being conditioned to think that you have to follow the educational system and then go into this corporate world.
Yeah.
And I really push my kids to say, if you end up there, that's okay. But if you don't want to, then don't chase that.
Right.
Chase what you want and
Yeah.
just make sure that you've got to be happy. You've got to pay your bills. You've got to take care of your responsibilities. You got to work. You know, you can't,
Right. Yeah.
dreams don't pay the bills, but you can chase your dreams for sure and get there. And I think our kids, hopefully, we have parents who are teaching their kids that now to take risks.
Yeah.
But I also think because of what we just shared, what kids have witnessed going through the pandemic with work from home with their parents, maybe
Yeah.
sometimes going to take your child to work day, they're starting to shape their own view of what they want their future to be like and the control they have over it,
Yeah.
you know?
I think they also are, even at earlier ages, are navigating what they want to do and understanding what it takes to get to where they want to go. And I'd say the acting piece, how many actors do you hear about, they all waited tables until they hit it big, right? That was something they did because it gave them the flexibility and the opportunity to go to all of the auditions that they wanted to go to, but then they could still make money.
You
Yeah.
look at that, some people might look at that and go, oh my God, you're waiting tables and you're almost 30. Or do you watch the show called The Pit? It's okay. My friend got me hooked on that. And well, one of the actors said he was working three jobs. He was doing like DoorDash is one of the jobs, and he was like, this just isn't going to work out. And then he landed this role on The Pit, and it has changed his life. And he's in his
Is it?
30s, and you hear that story so many times from a
Yeah.
lot of actors who make it big. And I think there's this commitment to, I have a calling on my heart, whatever it
Yeah.
is, and I'm going to follow it, even if it goes against the grain of what society is telling me. And I think it's important for kids to hear that
Yeah.
if the corporate machine is really attractive to you, go for it. There's no
Right.
judgment there, right? If you want to work your way up through the corporate ladder and become a CEO for another company or a VP or something, go for it. But if you don't want to do that, go for it the other way.
Yeah.
You don't have to.
Right.
And I think this generation, at least from what I've seen, and I know that my kids are fortunate to we moved to a school district where there was exposure to other opportunities. I mean, the high school they both went to has an ROTC program, a theater program, athletics, a vet
Yeah.
program, an early childhood program. So these kids are graduating high school a little bit ahead of the curve to go into different industries with
That's awesome.
certifications and testing and things
Yeah.
like that. But I think it's really important to have that kind of exposure early and
Absolutely.
have choices and
Yeah.
recognize that you have choices and that you don't have to do what your parents do and you don't have to fall in line.
People are trying to do what makes them happy as opposed to being stuck in a job and in at 9 a.m., out at 5 p.m. every day, doing the same thing over and over again.
You have to experience a certain percentage of life to change that mentality because I have talked to people who've said, well, yeah, I hate what I'm doing, but it's a lucrative environment. And I grew up really destitute and poor and I never wanted that. And so I hate my job every day, but I have a great lifestyle and I'll never worry about food on my table, et cetera. And I understand that motivation, but it does make me sad that they're
Yeah.
unfulfilled in their job. And I know for me, when I left corporate, one of the things I loved about talent acquisition was the people and just
Yeah.
I know this is going to sound corny, but the beauty in connecting a whole person with
Right.
motivations and dreams and responsibilities to a career in a company that not only aligned with them,
Right.
but that could fund that life that they were looking to live
Right.
and that they could add value to as well. I mean, it was a beautiful matchmaking experience. And I think you really have to
Right.
love people to see that. And the higher I got in organizations, the further I got from the core of what I loved, which was meeting and every single person you meet on this earth has a completely different lived experience and story. And it's
Right.
just so cool if you take a minute and talk to them and see what's motivating them. And then for me, it was connecting them to a job.
Yeah.
But I look at that now, and I've seen so many interviews of people that say, oh, well, we asked people, I think it was Simon Sinek, who he said, you ask people, oh, well, what do you do? And it becomes their identity. And you and I talked about that career being their
Right.
identity, but that
Yeah.
people don't ask, hey, are you happy?
Right.
How are you doing? Are you happy? And I was
Yeah.
like, as a parent, which is really relative to this conversation, I think about that often. I want my kids to be happy because
Yeah.
I think it took me loss and a long time to realize what the boundaries between work and life should be.
Yeah.
And I would hate that for my kids. And there's that
Yeah.
cliche saying, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. But we don't encourage kids to chase what they love to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I know, like, and I mentioned this on another episode, but growing up, it was always like, where are you going to make the most money? And still, I get questions like, where are you going to make the most money? And so that's always kind of been at the forefront of whatever I do. I want to be able to make as much money as possible.
Mm,
That's not my only goal because I also want to be happy and I want to thrive in whatever I do. I want to be successful. Not going to go pursue an accounting job. And so I want to be able to be successful and happy. And recruiting was really in talent acquisition were kind of my calling, um, unbeknownst to me. But then my mom went to school and was going to be a nurse. And then she got married and had kids and was lucky enough and fortunate enough to be able to stay home with us. And then when I went into kindergarten, she started substitute teaching and realized that she really liked working with children. And even to add to that, she substitute taught in middle school for a special ed teacher for an extended period of time and then realized that was her calling. So she went back to school to get her master's in special education, but she worked K through fifth, not middle school. She didn't want to deal with all the hormonal kids. I don't blame her.
I'm 40s and I'm with the hormonal shit now. It's too
It's true.
much.
This is true. Oh my God. This is true. So funny.
But yeah, I hope that kids today of all ages get a different type of exposure and set different boundaries because of it. And I
Absolutely.
think take your child to work day should be a little more honest
Yeah.
than wouldn't it be cool for kids to go through what happens when you're hired, the onboarding process of
Yeah.
completing W-4s and your
Before.
hiring paperwork and showing
Yeah.
IDs and explaining why this has to happen, why this is important, and you pay taxes. I mean, we were just talking about that before we started recording. Like, why
Yeah.
were we square dancing and not learning how
About
to do
taxes.
taxes or basic life skills?
Yeah.
And so I think companies have an opportunity to show kids, hey, we're going to give you the name badge and the welcoming committee because our
Yeah.
new employees get that. But then we're going to sit you down and we're going to have you fill out this paperwork. We're going to give you a fake identity. We're going to have you do this and explain to you why you have to do this because we're going to pay you. And oh, you need medical benefits because what if you have to go to the doctor, right? And you can make it engaging and fun, but it also creates visibility into the real
Yeah.
life experience that kids are going to have once they enter the workforce.
Have them do some of those new hire video trainings too that you have to do like within your first week or 30 days.
I mean, you could do that if you want to have a nap time and still.
Torture.
I think as kids, you need to be exposed to different people, different environments, so that when you do get into the workforce, you realize not everybody has the same motivations or work ethic as you. Not everybody, has the same communication style as you. As a
Yeah.
parent, I'll tell you, and I know you have nieces and all too. I've had conversations with my kids like nobody cares about your feelings out there. And you and I'm your mom. So if you want me to communicate with you differently or a different style works, I can do that for you. But I'm also not going to pull any punches with you. You're going to hear harsh truths from me because the world is full of harsh truths. And the
Yeah.
people who are going to give them to you don't care about your feelings. I happen
Right.
to. So I'm going to share them with you, but with more care. And I think that's something else that kids need to be exposed to too, is that communication of
Yeah.
nobody cares, work harder or
Right. Right. Because there tends to be a perception that the new generation is very entitled. And there are some, I'm not going to say that they're not, right? But to pigeonhole everybody and stereotype, it's unfair. But there are some children who are raised with these entitled mentalities because their parents don't do them justice and let them have and do whatever they want. And then they become assholes, right? And they get into the workforce and they don't thrive and they don't succeed because they don't know how to interact with people. They don't know how to proactively communicate, right? As you were saying, you think it's a really good idea for kids to go away to school and get that learning experience. I 100% agree. When I got accepted to college, I could either go 45 minutes away from home or 5 hours. I was like, I'm going 5 hours. See you. Bye. Like the further, the better. As my brother only went 45 minutes away from home. And granted, he didn't come home a lot, but I would say at least once a month. But it would be months before I would see my family, right? It wasn't just to get further away, but it was to gain my independence more than anything. And I made lifelong friends when I was at college, but I also learned a lot. And
Yes.
I had to be responsible. Ugh. But like there's such a learning experience. And so I would say to the children out there, if you have an opportunity to move away from home, even if you're not going to college, but you have an opportunity to move away, take it, do it, gain your independence, because it's such a good learning experience. And to your point, it exposes you to so many other types of personalities and people that you may not have interacted with growing up.
Just made such a great point, and it made me think of when we were talking about social media earlier, right? That social
Yeah.
media gives kids of today this different exposure,
Yeah.
but algorithms also force them into lanes of
Yeah.
like-minded people, content, etc. And
Right.
when you go away to college or you move away, you experience people in a different way in real
Yep.
life,
Yep.
and you find people where you're like, wow, I really like this person. They're a good person. I would have never hung out with them ever
Right.
because, and they have some views that I don't agree with, but I don't hate them for it. We have
Right.
common ground. We have healthy debate, you know? And I see that a lot with my kids in college. And then the other piece I think you just jarred in my brain is I've seen kids who've been pressured to be academically excellent, and then they don't know how to function beyond the academics, and they're so
Yeah.
achievement oriented that when life happens, and it doesn't go your
Yeah.
way. Look at all these people getting laid off right now
Yeah.
after 40 years of service and all this. They don't know how to adapt to that. And I've always been very big on telling my kids, you've got to be well rounded. So
Yeah.
your grades need to be good. Your grades are your job right now. So don't bring me D's and F's. D's and F's are a lack of effort, you know?
Right.
But if you're putting all of your best effort into a class and you have a C, I'm going to talk to you about it. What do you do? If you have missing assignments, we have a problem. If all your
Right.
grades are great, but your test grades are tough, that's a different conversation. And then I look like I told you, I have one kid who's an athlete, one who's in theater constantly. And they volunteer. One volunteers all the time, and one is working all the time.
Yeah.
They're so well rounded. They have these other experience where they're learning how to balance their lives. And I think that's a critical skill that we as parents have to instill in our kids, that chasing academic excellence is good. There's nothing
Yep.
wrong with that, but make sure that they have the balance, because as adults, they're not just going to go to work and perform.
Right.
And even when they perform excellently, they're still probably going to get a 3% raise, and nobody really patting them on the back. They're being,
Right.
congratulations, you did the job that you were hired for. There's no award
Right.
ceremony for this.
Right.
And
Right.
you have to have them be able to find satisfaction outside of the workplace, and also find pride in, hey, yeah, I'm killing it at work. That's great. But also, I volunteer at this organization. I can see my impact, and I have
Yeah.
my own apartment for the first time and my own furniture that I paid for, and
Right.
it's going, and you find fulfillment in the things that life has to offer and the
Yep.
responsibilities that you have. And I think that's critical for kids to see.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Because I know when I bought my first car on my own, like it was my car, and prior to that, I had had support, but majority purchase was mine. But just to
Mhm.
be able to say, like, I did it all on my own, that
Yes.
that that's the sense of accomplishment that you get.
And even
You
I
don't
think
make
the
honor
most
roll as you get older.
Right. But I also think even the most grateful kids, I think the kids who are really grateful for everything they have, when you buy something yourself with your own money that you worked for, you treat
Yeah,
it differently. You just treat it
absolutely.
differently.
Yeah.
And I think it's important for kids to learn that. And so I know as we're wrapping up this episode for parents, I think what we've covered here today is be intentional about what you expose your kids to.
Yep.
Don't just show them your job, but show them your thinking, right?
Yep.
And then, as you were saying, I think excellently is probably one of the most important lessons for anybody to learn is teach your kids about boundaries
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
about leadership and confidence. And then, what would you say for the employers out there, for professionals who are out there who might have influence over Take Your Child to Work Day or these types of programs? What would you recommend that they do?
Yeah. I think it's fine to have some of those fun activities, but I would provide more exposure to what a day in the life of the job is so that they get a better understanding and not that it's just all fun and games.
Yeah. And maybe a dose of healthy ambition. What does the ambition in the
Yeah.
workplace look like? Hmm.
Yeah.
So, okay, then for everyone, as we wrap up today, please challenge what success is supposed to look like and make sure your kids see possibility, humanity, options, and not just the pressure of working together.
Follow us on all your socials, NFNA Podcast. Until next time.